Right around the time he died, my father said to me, Jackie, you can't outrun your fate, but you sure as hell gotta try. I didn't really know what he meant back then. See, there was something inside me. Something terrible, waiting to get out. But once you've tasted it, you can't stop.
The Darkness, released back in 2007, was a unique experience. It offered decent enough gunplay and had some cool powers to mess around with, but it was the strong narrative, sense of style, and somewhat unconventional open-world structure that made it stand out. The Darkness 2 is not quite as ambitious as its predecessor, instead opting for a more streamlined, linear campaign while ratcheting up the blood and gore. The action is immensely satisfying, and the sequel still benefits from an engaging plot, but the adventure doesn't last very long, making The Darkness 2 a fun ride without any real long-term value.
Okay, you know how this story starts.
Set 2 years after the events of the original, the story once again focuses on Jackie Estacado, who is now the head of the crime family that once hunted him. Jackie is the current host of the Darkness, a demonic force that grants him incredible power at the cost of his own soul. Since the last game, he has been trying to keep the evil entity in check, but after an assassination attempt at a restaurant, the former hitman is forced to release the Darkness in order to save himself. Wanting to know who is responsible for the attack, Jackie begins looking for answers, and it's not long before he finds a cultist group who want his powers for their own twisted plans. He's also continuously haunted by visions of his lost love Jenny, who was brutally murdered right in front of him in the previous game. Unsure of what it all means, Jackie desperately tries to maintain control of the Darkness while fighting to keep it out of the wrong hands. While elements of the plot are usually not difficult to figure out, specifically where the cult and their motivations are concerned, the desperate internal struggle Jackie has with the Darkness, as well as his guilt over the death of Jenny, are powerful themes that remain a constant throughout the campaign. Numerous violent set-piece moments, as well as sequences that may have you second-guessing what classifies as reality, keep the narrative engaging from start to finish. Extra backstory can be obtained from speaking to some characters if you look for it, and loading screens between levels have Jackie monologue about the situation at hand or his background growing up. Penned by Paul Jenkins, a writer for the comic series both games are based on, the story also does a good job of continuing plot points from the last game while incorporating new elements for fans of the original source material. The narrative is dark and exciting, but unfortunately is over before you know it, only clocking in at a disappointingly brief 5 hours. On a basic level, The Darkness 2 is an average first-person shooter. You can carry up to 3 guns at any given time. While weapons like a rifle or shotgun require both hands to operate, many of the firearms you pick up can be dual-wielded, allowing you to mix and match. The component that makes combat unique and refreshing is the titular Darkness, which manifests itself as 2 snake-like tentacles on either side. The one on the right is used for slashing vertically and horizontally, while the one on the left is used for throwing projectiles and grabbing staggered enemies to perform a gory, painful-looking execution, such as tearing mobsters in half like a wishbone. These are not only fun to watch, but reward various benefits such as extra health or ammunition. You're also invulnerable while this animation plays out, so the executions can act as a short reprieve if you find yourself in over your head. Most of the deaths are gruesome and are sure to invoke a reaction the first few times they appear, but they repeat often, causing the shock value to wear off rather quickly. The Darkness has other advantages in combat as well. Your health will regenerate gradually over time, or from eating the hearts of your fallen adversaries. An upgrade grid allows you to purchase new abilities such as summoning a swarm to distract enemies, enhancing your firearms with powerful dark essence, and creating black holes that suck in anyone within range. Unfortunately, most of the things available for purchase simply act as passive buffs to existing powers, so you'll have seen all that you have at your disposal before too long. A small creature known as a Darkling is also by your side most of the time. He'll sometimes distract enemies, making them easier to grab, and a couple points in the game actually let you take direct control of him, but his main purpose is to tag along, make wisecracks, and occasionally urinate on a corpse. Naturally, every ability that Jackie has requires him to stay in the shadows. Being in the light eliminates all the benefits of the Darkness and can be rather disorienting. Hanging out in lit areas is a quick way to fall in combat, so destroying light sources and generators is encouraged. Early on, keeping yourself in the dark isn't very difficult, but as the game progresses you'll encounter enemies that use light against you. Some will throw bombs that leave you practically defenseless, while others carry large spotlights. They add an unknown variable to the combat, as you never know when a well-placed light source will turn the tide of battle in favor of your opponents. That's not to say that most of your enemies are intelligent. The AI of your foes is actually rather poor. Some will stay behind cover and take shots at you, but many are content with standing in the open just waiting for the sweet release of death. A number of them even think that charging the notorious mobster with demon powers is a good idea with nothing more than a baseball bat. Slaughtering the dim-witted AI is fun and definitely helps the feeling of being an unstoppable killing machine, but it also means that most fights lack any real challenge. Once you've completed the brief campaign, there's not much to keep you coming back. A New Game Plus option is unlocked that allows you to tackle the story again on higher difficulties with all your upgrades available, but it doesn't actually add anything to the experience. There's also a new cooperative mode called Vendettas, which includes a separate campaign and a small collection of one-off missions, all of which can be played alone or with up to 3 others online. There are 4 playable characters to choose from, each of which has their own special weapon and darkness ability. However, the feel of each character is basically identical, so there's little reason to experiment with them. The Vendettas campaign acts as a side story to the main narrative, but fails to be interesting in any meaningful way. It can also be completed in about 2 hours, and the additional side missions simply recycle environments from the campaign. The mode acts as little more than a brief, slightly amusing distraction that can easily be ignored. The Darkness 2 has a very distinctive look. Cell shading is nothing new in games, but instead of being used as a cover for poor tech, the shading effect is used to complement the detailed textures, giving the whole package an appropriate comic book feel. Lighting is also done well, an important element considering it drives the primary gameplay mechanic. You'll notice a muddy texture here and there, and the occasional graphical oddity is present, but from an overall visual standpoint, the game looks great. Sound effects are well done, with every gunshot packing appropriate punch, and every bloody execution sounding just as painful as it looks. Music is high quality, complementing scenes perfectly, and the voice cast, with Mike Patton once again providing the voice of the Darkness, does an excellent job.
Protect the Darkness.
Never! I'm done with you!
The Darkness 2 will provide you with a good time filled with excessive violence, but will also leave you longing for more. The lack of compelling extra content is hard to overlook, and is the main drawback to this sequel. It's certainly worth playing for the story and brutal satisfaction of tearing droves of bad guys limb from limb, but without reason to return to it once the brief experience is over, The Darkness 2 is best recommended as an enthusiastic rental.